Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Thrive Like a Parent podcast. I want to talk to you about, I'm jumping right in. I want to talk to you about naturally regulating your nervous system because I recently just posted a reel and you may not have seen it because it's in trial reels and I'll post it later. But anyway, there was a mom who posted about her daughter, and her daughter's an infant. And the first slide on this reel is her daughter banging her head on the floor. And then the next one is of her daughter rocking, standing up and rocking back and forth. And she wrote in the reel, she has a doctor's appointment soon, but she just wanted to know if anyone else had any ideas or knew what was going on with her daughter. Well, she has since gone to the doctor, gotten the answer she needed. However, I can imagine being a parent, seeing your child do certain behaviors, do certain things, and then be scared shitless because you have no idea what your child is doing and you have no idea why your child is doing that. And it can be, especially if you're like a first time parent, it can be very, very scary. Now, the thing to note is that things such as a pacifier, sucking our fingers, banging our feet up against, the railings of our crib, really feeling peaceful and calm in the swaddle versus when we're not swaddled and we're struggling to, go to sleep and we really needed that deep pressure. All these things that we have learn tricks of the trade, if you will, as new parents to help our kids go to sleep, we look at those as social norms. We look at those as ways in which to support our infant, our child. We don't necessarily think to ourselves, oh, this is a means for regulation. This is the way in which our child is regulating their nervous system, because no one effing teaches that. No one effing explains that. I'm sure I didn't take the birthing classes. I didn't take the parenting classes before having babies. I was in a hospital on bed rest. I went into labor, at 29 or 27 weeks. And then I was on bed rest until 33. I had both my kids at 33. So there was no time. I had no baby shower. I had no anything. I didn't go to those classes. So if you went and you're like, oh yes, they do explain the nervous system, da, 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 I could be wrong. But this reel to me says we are not prepared and we don't understand the nervous system prior to having children. So why the heck would we understand the nervous system for an infant? Now, the important thing to note is that some of these behaviors will actually, your children will grow out of. If your child, quote, let's talk about colic, right? Colic. And I'm putting that in little quotes. If you're watching this, you'll see them. The first thing I ask parents when I am working with a parent who they're wanting me to support their child is, was your child a preemie? Was there any complications with the pregnancy? Were they colicky? How did they sleep at night? Did they have any feeding issues? I want to know the background, because that nervous system is showing up from the moment your child is born. And yes, I did just say that some of these things we grow out of. So many have asked me on Q&As of, is it okay to take the pacifier away? Or is it okay if my child is still XYZ age years old and still using a pacifier, still sucking their thumb? Yes. Some call that a primitive reflex. I call it regulation, right? We are learning how to regulate our nervous system. We are in a very comfortable space for 9 months. We're squeezed in there like sausages, right? And we're all wrapped up and cozy, and then all of a sudden all the stimuli is coming at us. We have to be able to find ways to regulate our nervous system as naturally as possible. You better believe we're going to figure it out, whether it's screaming and crying, whether it's sucking our thumb, whether it's banging, whether it's rubbing a teddy bear, against our lip, or chewing on our shirt. There's a million different things that we can do, and they demonstrate differently as we get older, right? So in the beginning, it can be sucking our thumb and all the different ones, pacifiers, all the things I just said. Then we can move into biting our nails, chewing our shirt, having meltdowns rather than, quote, colic, right? We can be the child who is desperate to get back inside your stomach and on top of you and always wants to be touching you and holding hands. That's the way that they're trying to regulate. We can also have the other kiddo who is, and I've talked about this type of kiddo a lot, the one that moves from task to task to task. leaves kind of a tornado in their path, never cleans up after themselves. You can even call them impulsive. You can even call them, that's my ADHD kid. You can call them a seeker, right? Sensory seeker. All of these things that I'm saying to you and all the reasons that they are doing these behaviors is to regulate their nervous system. I'm going to give you an example of children who are regulated. Let's say children are regulated, but then I'm going to give you an example of, oh, okay, now I know that something's going on with my child. So I have parents who their children are otherwise potty trained, and then all of a sudden they've got skid marks in their pants. That is a sign of not quote regression of, oh, we're regressing. What do you mean? We just learned how to potty train and all of a sudden now we're shitting in our pants again. That is a sign that something is going on with them nervous system wise, right? That is I always talk about the dashboard in your car. Ding ding ding, check engine light. That is check engine. If there's skid marks in their pants, if they're shoving their hands in their mouth, if they're chewing their shirt, all the different behaviors that you're like, why are they doing that? If it goes away and then it comes back, and then it goes away and then it comes back, those are your markers. Remember how I tell you we collect so much data with all of our clients? That is what you should be looking for in terms of how your child is doing and what's going on. Now, we're not going to always potentially bang our head against the wall or a floor. We're not going to always rock. We may find different coping skills. We also may tell our children to stop. We also may strip that away from them. The hardest thing about what I do is, I would say, way back in the day when I was kind of gathering all the pieces together, collecting the data to build this method and to explain it to you in layman's terms, there was a season of my life where I was so incredibly pissed off and angry with the school system. And the reason I was so pissed off and angry with the school system, and still I have that, but I had to move through the process of not being so angry all the time. But the reason I had that is because we are stripping away our children's natural ability to regulate. And what we're doing is we're looking at their behaviors and saying, oh, they have ADHD and we need to give them medicine. And I should probably say the caveat to that is I don't judge medication. I think each parent has to decide for yourself, medication wise, as well as your children. I don't get to decide. That's something that you get to decide on your own for your own family. There's benefits, there's pros and cons, and I am not for or against. I am parent choice. That's where I lie on that. But the problem is that we have built society to be so perfect, to be so prim and proper, to be so cleanly, to be so beautiful, right? Like, I mean, think of some of the clothing people wear. Like, look at the Kardashians, okay? Like, do you think that spandex shit is comfortable? Maybe it is for them if they're seekers. Clearly they are. They're extroverts, right? That would be so wildly uncomfortable to me. So uncomfortable to wear. Right? We put on this front and we keep acting and trying to live in this status quo, live in the social norms, if you will, and forget that all of our brains function differently. We need different things for our body and brain. And in order to support ourselves, we need to focus in on how our brain and body feels, what we need, and how to go get that, right? And where we're feeling it in our body, where those feelings are coming up in our body. Yeah. If you are completely ignoring them and also trying to mask and also trying to maintain and keep up with the Joneses, and you're also trying to be a perfectionist, and you're also trying to get the promotion, and you're also, right? If you're doing all these things, there's no humanly way possible that you are listening into your nervous system. The most heartbreaking thing to me is that we very, very slowly strip away our natural ability, either from our kids to regulate their nervous system because of the social norms of stop it, behave, put your napkin in your lap, sit down at the table, all the different things, right? And then they've got to find ways to regulate themselves. And that could be internally them ripping themselves to shreds because they're not allowed to regulate themselves the way that they need to and longing to. They're not being able to express their emotions and feelings. And this just has such strong implications for who we become as adults. I would say that, take for instance, the reel that I was just talking to you about. If that little girl, and I'm not saying that this is happening with this mom. I think this mom did an incredible job of being brave enough to post this on social media to get some answers because she was desperate before the doctor's appointment. If that child is then taught not to do those things, that it isn't okay to bang our head or it isn't okay to rock, she's going to need to find other ways. And if she doesn't, guarantee you that will end up with stress, anxiety, depression, overwhelm, burnout, dysregulation as a teen, a toddler, an adult, all the in between. Hands down, because A, I didn't understand this information. B, my parents didn't know this information. C, I had no idea what kind of nervous system I had. And I had no idea how to support myself in this way. I absolutely pushed down the things that I need. And I kept functioning in a fight or flight state for so many years. And that was my MO. That was literally my baseline. And it took years for me to be able to get situated. That's the best term for it. Get situated within my new comfort zone of my nervous system of being regulated, because my brain was so used to being patterned to go, 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 go. And I was go, 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 going because of social norms, society, perfectionism, all the things I just said, but also because that go, 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 go system was what my brain thought I needed to do in order to regulate. That was the pattern that I built. And now that I have slowed down, everything in my life has changed. I've really done the deep dive into each different stimuli, whether it's eating or visualization or the colors in my house or the clothing that I wear. Everything has shifted in my life to support my nervous system. I literally live to support my nervous system. I haven't said this in a really long time, but there is a difference between a tantrum and a meltdown. And a tantrum is, you know what you need, you know what you want, you're going to go get it. You want that extra piece of pie. The kid's going to have a tantrum, but I want another whatever, right? A meltdown, and I have a course on this as well to kind of go in deeper. A meltdown is you have no idea what you want, you have no idea what you need. First you want the pie, then you want the apple, then you want the bread, then you want the milk, and it's like, what the fuck do you actually want? Right. And then you're stuck in the middle of this because you tried to help give them what they want and they don't want any of it. That is a meltdown. Okay. When they're in a meltdown, their brain is offline. So less compliance, less words, like don't do anything. However, the point I'm trying to make here is that if you choose not to regulate your nervous system on a natural basis and a regular basis in a very supportive way to your life, what will end up happening is you will have an adult meltdown. You will absolutely have one, and you'll be like, I don't know why I'm crying, and it did it. You'll just absolutely melt down. And that is your brain's way of regulating for you. That is your brain's way of saying, you did not take care of me. You did not support me. And now I'm going to do it for you because I have no other choice. And then you usually feel exhausted and tired and probably even a little bit better after you have that meltdown, right? So how do we support the brain for ourselves, for our children, while also keeping boundaries? Because I'm big on boundaries, right? And I did mention sitting at the dinner table. Well, that's a really great example. If you're listening to this and you're like, so you're telling me I need to support my child's natural ability to regulate their nervous system, but I want them to sit down at dinner at the dinner table. And that kind of sounds counterintuitive. If they really need to rock and move their body, but I need them to sit down and eat with us and be able to sit down at a restaurant, right? How do I support both? Well, it can absolutely be both, but we have to support the nervous system prior to sitting down in the chair, right? We give some really, really big movement and we really lean into supporting that nervous system and give the movement that the brain needs. And then once we've given the movement, we know that the child has had the sensory play or the sensory input that they need in order to be able to move to the next task, which may be sitting down in the chair for dinner, right? So it can be both. You may have to structure your day in order to support your child who really requires a lot of movement and a lot of regulation in order to be able to sit down and attend. Right? Same thing with school. School should not be saying, well, your child can't sit, attend, and focus, so I need them to be on some medication and they need a diagnosis of ADHD and all the different things. And yes, I've had many conversations on this. I've had many podcasts on this. So go listen to all those on my opinions, all the different things. What we should be doing is allowing our children to stand on balance boards and have lots more movement in school and be able to take breaks. And the school system is absolutely broken in that sense of we need our children to sit and stay and do what we need them to do. And that may not be the best thing for the nervous system, right? So, as you are starting from the beginning of time, meaning yourself, think about your patterns, think about how you grew up, what things and how you ticked and what things bothered you and what things felt really good for you, as well as think about your child, right? Think about and start observing their nervous system from the moment they're born. If you have a colicky baby, I guarantee you, you're probably going to have a sensory little kiddo because that is a sign to me that they require a lot in order to soothe. They may not be able to self soothe on their own. For instance, when Charlie, my oldest, was a baby, I got this swaddle, like researched and researched, but I got this spandexy swaddle that gave the input his body needed, but I could wrap him up. It looked like a peanut. So maybe Google or search peanut. But I wrapped that puppy up so tight. Charlie needed a lot of deep pressure in order to be able to regulate and go to sleep. I remember I had to pump because he was in the NICU. He never latched. He would wake up, I would feed him, I would then go pump. And then by the time I was finished pumping and cleaning everything in the middle of the night, he'd be up and crying. He'd have some milk drunk phase where he'd go back to sleep, but then his stomach was irritated and he didn't have reflux. He didn't puke all the time. It was just regulation, learning how to regulate our nervous system from the moment we're born. Unfortunately, my children were preemies. And so I knew that the last thing to develop in utero is your nervous system. And so if they come out as preemies, odds are you're going to have an underdeveloped nervous system for your children. So just know that too if you have any preemies. And so they may require a little bit more support in terms of figuring out their nervous system. And there may be some residual things that go on throughout their childhood or even life that they need to be able to learn how to support themselves or support their nervous system in order to take care of themselves. So that was a mouthful. But I just want to remind you the main means of this little chat is I want to remind you that your children actually have the natural ability to learn how to regulate their nervous system naturally. But sometimes in this world, we strip that natural ability away and we force them to maintain certain social norms. So if your child is moving from task to task to task, if your child does require a lot of stimulation, if your child is banging their head against the wall, if your child is doing certain things, clapping, screaming, making certain noises, just let's call them odd or different behaviors because they may not be the norm, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's an issue. Okay. But you may deem them as odd or different of no one else's child is doing this. Why is my child doing this? That may naturally be how they're trying to regulate their nervous system. So taking that away may not be the best thing to do. Right. So just start when they're young. And even if you have older kiddos, you can do it now. You can start observing, you can start checking, you can start seeing how they function, how they tick, and what they need, rather than stripping away what they need and giving them what you feel they must do based on societal norms. And until next time, XOXO, Dr. B.